Monaco has a way of making reality feel slightly unreal. The air itself seems to carry a different weight, as if everything is polished, just a little more than anywhere else in the world. When the sun hits the Mediterranean and bounces off the pale stone of Monte-Carlo, the whole place feels like it has been designed for one purpose: to be seen, and to see others in return. On certain days, especially when the season is in full swing, the streets near the harbour begin to change character. It starts subtly, a low hum in the distance. Then the sound becomes sharper, more mechanical, more intentional. Engines! Not just any engines, but the kind that announce themselves before they even appear. The road curves and suddenly the first silhouette arrives, low to the ground, impossibly smooth, painted in colours that feel almost too vivid to be real. Then another follows, and another. The street becomes a moving exhibition where each arrival is more dramatic than the last. The women of Monaco, often seen along these routes, carry their own kind of presence that blends naturally into this environment. They are not rushing. Nothing here seems rushed. There is a calm confidence in the way they move, as if time has agreed to slow down for them. Light fabrics, soft tailoring, effortless styling that looks unplanned but never is. They stand near cafes, near the marina edges, near hotel entrances where glass reflects everything like water. Conversations happen in half smiles and glances, as if words are optional in a place like this. Supercars glide through these streets like they belong to the architecture. Machines that elsewhere would feel extreme appear almost normal here. The shapes are sculpted with obsession. Carbon fiber catching sunlight in fragments, exhaust notes bouncing off luxury boutiques and marble facades. A car arrives not just as transportation, but as a statement that briefly interrupts the visual silence of perfection. People turn their heads not in surprise, but in recognition. This is what is expected here. There is a rhythm to the arrivals. Some vehicles come alone, drawing attention entirely to themselves. Others appear in groups, creating a procession that feels almost ceremonial. The sound builds, peaks, and fades again as they disappear toward the harbour, where yachts rest like floating cities. Each arrival carries its own mood. Some are aggressive and sharp, others are smooth and quiet, whispering instead of shouting. Billionaire luxury lifestyle in Monaco is not expressed loudly in the way people imagine from the outside. It is not chaos or excess in the obvious sense. It is control, precision. Everything has a place, and everything is placed with intention. Even the randomness feels curated. The hotels stand like palaces that decided to become modern. Their lobbies are filled with marble floors that reflect footsteps like echoes of wealth. Staff move with practiced elegance, not hurried, not slow, just perfectly calibrated to the environment. Yachts in the harbour are another world entirely. They sit in layers, each one more refined than the last. White hulls stretch across the water like floating architecture. At night, they become glowing structures, lit from within like private galaxies anchored to the sea. People move between them as if crossing invisible borders between versions of the same dream. Music sometimes drifts across the water, but it never dominates. It blends into the sound of waves and distant engines. In the evenings, Monaco transforms again. The light shifts into gold and then into deep blue. Restaurants open their terraces and fill with conversations that mix languages effortlessly. Glasses catch candlelight. Jewelry reflects movement instead of just light. Nothing feels static. Even stillness feels alive here. The atmosphere becomes heavier, more intimate, as if the entire city has leaned closer to listen. Supercars do not stop appearing at night. If anything, they become more dramatic. Headlights carve lines through the darkness. Engines echo differently when the streets are quieter, more pronounced, more theatrical. Arrivals at casinos and private events feel like scenes from a film that never needed a script. Doors open, people step out, and for a moment everything pauses just long enough for attention to settle before the next movement begins. The Monaco lifestyle is built around proximity. Everything important is close together. Luxury hotels, designer boutiques, private clubs, marinas, and residences exist within walking distance, yet each step feels like crossing into a slightly different world. A morning coffee can happen beside a supercar worth more than most buildings. An afternoon walk can pass yachts larger than hotels, and yet none of it feels chaotic. It feels arranged. The women seen in these spaces often reflect this environment without needing to match it. There is elegance without effort, confidence without announcement, style that feels personal rather than performed. They move through spaces filled with wealth without appearing overwhelmed by it, as if they belong not to the objects around them but to the atmosphere itself. Fashion blends into architecture here. Colors echo the sea, the stone, the sky, soft neutrals during the day, deeper tones at night. Everything is coordinated without appearing coordinated. Even the simplest outfit seems to understand its surroundings. A walk along the marina becomes a slow-motion scene of reflections, water, and motion that never feels rushed. The soundscape of Monaco is just as important as its visuals. There is always something happening in the background. Engines in the distance, soft footsteps on stone, the faint clink of glasses from terraces above the streets, water moving against docks, conversations that rise and fall in different languages. It all merges into a continuous atmosphere that feels alive, but never chaotic. Inside the private world of billionaire lifestyles, there is a strong emphasis on privacy, despite the visibility of luxury. Glass walls open into terraces that overlook the sea, but curtains, angles, and layouts ensure separation from the outside world. Spaces are designed for comfort rather than display, even when they look like they were designed to be photographed. The paradox is part of the appeal. As the night deepens, Monaco becomes quieter in some areas and more vibrant in others. The harbour remains active, with soft movement and light. Cars still arrive at venues where events continue behind discreet entrances. The city never fully sleeps, but it does shift into a slower rhythm that feels almost like breathing. And through all of this, the constant presence is balance, between speed and stillness, between noise and silence, between visibility and privacy. Supercars arrive, linger briefly in attention, and move on. People gather, observe, and continue their evenings. The luxury is not just in what is seen, but in how everything feels carefully aligned with itself. Monaco does not need to announce its status. It simply exists in a way that makes everything else feel slightly less refined by comparison. The ladies, the supercars, the yachts, the architecture, and the night itself all become part of a single flowing scene that continues without beginning or end. It is not a performance for visitors. It is simply the way life unfolds here, moment by moment, in a place where luxury is not an exception, but the baseline reality. There is also a quieter side to Monaco that reveals itself only when the most visible moments begin to fade. Early mornings carry a different energy, when the harbour is still and the water looks almost flat like glass. The streets that were crowded hours before become open again, as if the city is resetting itself. Cleaners move quietly along terraces, restoring order without disrupting the calm. The first light touches the edges of buildings in a way that makes everything feel softer, less intense, more human. At this hour, the supercars are often still parked, resting after the night's movement. They sit under soft lighting, in private garages or outside residences overlooking the sea. Without the noise of engines, they feel more like objects of design than machines of speed. Their presence is still strong, but it becomes quieter, more reflective. People passing by do not rush. They observe briefly, then continue on, as if this level of luxury has already been accepted as part of the environment rather than something unusual. Private clubs begin to prepare for another cycle of activity as the day builds. Inside, there is a focus on atmosphere rather than spectacle. Seating is arranged for conversation, not attention. Music stays in the background, never overwhelming the space. The idea is not to dominate the senses, but to support them. Everything is intentional, without needing to be announced. This is where many of the deeper connections in Monaco form, away from the public rhythm of the marina and the streets. Fashion during the day continues the same quiet language seen at night, but with a lighter tone. Fabrics move easily in the coastal air. Colors reflect the sunlight instead of absorbing it. There is a sense of effortlessness that still carries structure underneath. Nothing appears accidental, even when it looks relaxed. The balance between presentation and comfort defines much of the visual identity of the people who move through these spaces. As the day progresses, the contrast between stillness and motion becomes more noticeable. A single supercar entering a street can briefly shift attention, then the moment passes and life continues without disruption. This rhythm of interruption and return is part of what defines Monaco's atmosphere. Nothing lingers too long. Everything flows forward in its own timing. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more luxury lifestyle content.